This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan Scott Hall and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number 1, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour Podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, Amateur Hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, my homeboy in Hermosa Beach, is Dirkness.
What's up?
Dirk.
What's up?
Chiefs really squeaked one out on Sunday night. Real squeaker. If you only had one word to describe Mahomes' Sunday performance, it would be what?
Scrambling.
Oh,
It was a scrambling performance because, one, when the chips are down and the Chiefs need to play game after game, year after year, it is Patrick Mahomes that gets the job done with his legs. I've never really seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody with a nose for the first down marker like he has. And it's just think of all the big plays that have come with his legs, and it's always him, like, just getting past the first down line. I guess the Super Bowl one last year, he went a little further, but it's almost always right at the sideline, just past the first down marker, and just barely picking it up. And it's always pretty dramatic. Like, is he going to get there? And of course he's going to get there. He's very, very good at that. Drew Tranquil even had the quote after the game, formerly of the Chargers. We didn't spy him for 4 years with the Chargers and paid for it dearly. So, I mean, this is something that, here's a former player speaking out. I mean, it's also kind of, if you're spying Patrick Mahomes, that just takes another player away from coverage. And then you're looking at, all kinds of different problems. So this is just kind of the, last ditch thing, but also kind of, Mahomes, it's probably on the front of his mind at all times that he's thinking, what if I just tuck this and run with it? Always looking for that lane and always knowing, exactly how far his legs can get. And he's unprecedented at it. But also he threw 2 of the worst interceptions I've ever seen him throw, which scrambled my brains a bit. And it was kind of weird to see him play that poorly on the national stage and yada, yada. And just any stage, really. I mean, just not used to seeing him play poorly. So seeing him struggle like that was also a bit scrambling for my brain. So my word for his performance is scrambling.
well, I've been scrambling to try to figure out like how to talk about it in a rational way.
No, let's get irrational. Let's get into it.
I want to take us back in time a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember Mahomes
Last year?
was untouchable in September for many moons? So look, I crunched some numbers. Okay. As our friend Kent would say, the KCSN analytics department. I went ahead and knocked on the door, said, "Hey, folks, I need some numbers on Patrick Mahomes." Did a little Google. So look, Patrick Mahomes had a 49 touchdown to 4 interception ratio entering this season. The guy was essentially untouchable. He was 13-3, I think. But really up until, I want to say after his first couple seasons, it was like never lost a game in September, never thrown an interception in September, like absolutely untouchable. And suddenly this year, he's got technically, that's that little teeny tiny technicality, which really threw my numbers off. The game on Sunday was October 1st. So it just kind of got pulled out of there. The 1 touchdown to 2 interception ratio that he had against the Jets doesn't get to count in these numbers, but still, he threw 2 picks prior to that Jets game in September, and he'd only thrown 4 in September his entire career prior to this year. And so ultimately, I'm just looking at it thinking like, maybe if nothing else, it's emblematic of the way that the first quarter of this season has gone. But I have to also be realistic and understand that the way that the first quarter of this preseason has gone has led to the Chiefs being in first preseason 4 games.
Call it the preseason. Call it. We got Nick right out here calling it a glorified practice. I mean, preseason would be a step up from that. So we're giving them the rest of the NFL a little more respect than Nick is, at least.
The first 4 weeks of this season, the way things have gone, it's led to the Chiefs being in first place in the AFC where they kind of rightfully belong, which is all good and well. But at least as far as Sunday night's game is concerned, if it weren't for the plays that he made with his legs, if it weren't for the scrambling, and even when you include the scrambling, one of the most abysmal performances of Patrick Mahomes' career. I believe they said it was like his 4th lowest, whatever, let's just call it EPA or some advanced statistic that tells us that he played bad.
You get that from the analytics department too?
Yes. In 3 or 4 games, folks, things were just flat out clunky. And in the one game that they weren't, they played the team that has the 1st and 2nd overall pick in next season's draft if the season were in today. A historically bad Bears defense. And so I don't really know like what to make of this year's September and October 1st. But it really has not been like classic Mahomes. Now, if I were to compare his numbers league-wide, I'm sure he looks fine. So on the Mahomes scale, it's where we're worried, and maybe not on the national stage that we're actually worried, which is where this always gets muddy with him. It makes him really difficult to evaluate because he's playing against himself, especially in the local coverage, because our expectations are so high and we're constantly kind of looking backward. And so it makes it difficult. I don't know. I will agree with you, though, that the scrambling efforts of Patrick Mahomes were pretty heroic. And it led me to almost want to say, if there were only one word to describe Patrick Mahomes' performance on Sunday night, it might be clutch. That final drive, which unbelievably, they ran the clock out with over 7 minutes by a couple seconds. It was like 7:04 or something when they got the ball. Never gave it back to the Jets, and they only traveled like 46 yards. They really were able to bleed the clock mostly on the ground, not just Mahomes, but obviously the running backs getting involved in there too. And you see 2 plays on that drive from him that are just unbelievable. Getting 25 yards on a 3rd and 23 scramble, and then ultimately sealing the game on that 3rd and 8. Mahomes was sensational on that final drive, at least as far as the scrambles were concerned.
Don't forget the run on 3rd and 13 that he had. He also picked up the first down, had a fun little dive at the end of that one, and that one gets called back for a holding. So yeah, it was clutch. That's fair. No argument there. Kind of reminiscent of the Super Bowl last year when they had the clock-killing drive. It also had the ticky-tack holding penalty called that extended the drive. And
everybody looking at the Sauce Gardner thing, I was like, this looks just like the Darius Slay thing to me. Looks just like
pretty close. I hope we spend 0 more time talking about the refs. It's embarrassing how much the refs have dominated the conversation around this game. It's silly, and I want 0 part of it. I'll just say that.
I'll give one little teeny tiny tidbit. I think that that there's been way too much conversation when suddenly a player who is at the middle of the conversation feels the need to come out and like make a statement. he's like, Sauce Gardner comes out today and he's like, let me clear the air on this penalty. And it's like, let's not. I'm fine. I'll be okay.
Also, and the holding go around wasn't a hold, and that's it. That's it. We're done with that. So yeah, the offense, they score 17 points in the first 12 minutes on the first 3 drives. And then after that, they go safety, interception, field goal, interception, punt, field goal into the game drive, which was an impressive drive. But yeah, it just reeked of Andy Reid shutdown mode. Like, you clearly got the feeling that the Chiefs got up 17-0 in this game. They were ready to enter Andy Reid shutdown mode, put nothing more on tape, both on offense and defense, and really had every reason to think that the Jets were just going to roll over and finish this game out. And it's just going to end, 27-10, and the Chiefs ho-hum. They don't put anything else rest on tape the rest of the night. So it was kind of wild that, sometimes that backfires. And I don't think Andy Reid necessarily minds when it does, because I think he likes to challenge his team like this. He likes to put them in situations where, hey, defense, don't allow 17 points in this game. These 17 points should be enough for you guys. You shouldn't have to, get fancy with these blitzes. You're better than this limited offense on the other end. Go out and prove it. Like, this is your time. And so, they more or less did. They only allowed 18. So a couple drives in there, but we'll get to the defense later. But also challenging the offense. Then once the game gets close, okay, go out and score. And, they did eventually, but they did have 2 drives in there after the Jets tied it up, that drive after the second half, where the Chiefs offense gets the ball and it's like, okay, it's time to respond now. And I think they went 3 and out on both of those drives. They definitely punted on both of those drives. So that was a little concerning. And so I've been on here, there's no reason to be concerned. This Chiefs offense is going to figure it out. It's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, which I still believe fully. And I think there are some pros you can take from this game. But I don't think we should just gloss over their struggles right now, because there are some concerns. And so the receivers are obviously part of that. The Chiefs receiving leaders in this game are a tight end, a running back, and a tight end. And then you have your top 3 receivers in snaps. Here's their yards in the game: 5 yards, 0 yards, 6 yards. So you have 11 total receiving yards from your top 3 receivers in snaps. So obviously that is concern. Only 9 total passing first downs in this game. That's the 4th fewest of the Mahomes era. So some concerning stats out there. The Jets do have a good defense. I just kind of thought they were more or less ready to give up on the season. I see them out here last week yelling at position coaches. Obviously they have the heartbreak to start the season. They have all these expectations and they just fall flat on their face. They have every reason to give up on this season. And then you're down 17-0. And you got Taylor Swift up here. That's just, we're being held a mockery here. So I would have gotten it. They would have every reason to lay down and give them credit for fighting back. And I think it was a lot of Andy Reid shutdown mode that went wrong, and then it was kind of hard to plug back in and turn this offense back on.
A lot of different things I can dig into there. I'll wait till after this first break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Folks, if you are looking for a way to make a big impact in Kansas City, our partner for this season, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, need sponsors for their sports teams and leagues. You can help local kids while promoting your business throughout the metro, and all you got to do is send an email to giving@helpkckids.org. Just reach out for more information.
Do you love sports? Want to share your love by coaching local youth? Our partners this year at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kansas City needs your help today. Visit helpkckids.org and click on volunteer to start coaching today. You can be the next Andy Reid.
Ooh, that'd be good. Yeah, I'd love to see like a 13-year-old that is the size of Andy Reid at 13, so we could just get a new video for punt, pass, and kick. Do they even do pass and kick anymore?
That's a tough call. I would hope so.
I think that what is actually funny, I believe that in that video, the caption underneath says Andrew Reid, and somehow
it says RIED actually.
Oh, there we go.
I haven't memorized it. Don't worry.
I do believe, however, that as Andy has gotten older, he went from Andrew to Andy, and isn't it usually the inverse? As you get older, it's the more professional to be an Andrew and not an Andy. But that's beside the point, folks. So look, I want to go back to a couple things that you said. Let's start here, and actually with something that happened in the chat. Ryan Ewing out here trying to fact check me. Buddy, you have been listening to this show for long enough, right? You know that we don't fact check, sir.
Got him.
But you're right. It's fine. It's fine. It was James Bradbury, not Darius Slay. Long off season for both of those guys and everyone else in Philadelphia and on the Eagles roster. You kind of started touching on like I guess not necessarily where are we pointing blame, but there's a lot of different things that are going wrong for this offense. And I don't think that we necessarily have to point fingers, but when you look at particularly those numbers that you read about the receivers, and read them back to us one more time, the number of snaps versus the number of yards.
Well, it's just the top 3 receivers in snaps, which is MVS, and it's Sky Moore, and it's Justin Watson.
Right.
And in this game, they had 5 yards and 0 yards and 6 yards, respectively. So 11 total yards from your top 3 receivers in snaps.
I'll put it this way. Obviously, credit to the Jets defense, particularly between Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Like, one of the things that is really challenging when you play against them is that there isn't like a particular strength that you want to try to avoid. They're good in like the short area. They're good in the intermediate area. They're good when you're going deep. And when you have a couple guys like MVS and Justin Watson, who generally speaking, I think do their best work down the field, but neither one of them are like dynamic enough to be, putting DJ Reed or Sauce Gardner in bad positions. Those guys were almost like sacrificial lambs for the team, just trying to occupy that coverage all night, but they're not getting open. And so that means that you need to rely on all these auxiliary weapons. And listen, man, I mean, despite the aggressive commentary that I offered last week on Sky Moore, the sky is falling. I mean, look, just last night, our longtime friend and now colleague, for lack of a better word, here at KCSN, Craig Stout. Craig is great, by the way, but he came out and unequivocally, like definitively said, and this is a man that I trust. All right. Sky Moore isn't getting enough separation to earn the volume targets that we were expecting going into the year. I've been asking kind of rhetorically, just out into the ether, like, are these guys getting open or not? Because I don't watch all 22. And even if I did, like, I don't even know if I would really be able to interpret what I'm looking at. So, like, someone smarter than me, just say it out loud. And Craig did so last night on the lab. Go and listen. He says it. He's like, Sky Moore is not getting open in these spaces that we're expecting. Like, he is not creating enough separation to get the targets that we thought he was going to. And at this point, not only should we be worried, but he should probably start surrendering some snaps to Rashee Rice. Was the first option here, the most targeted receiver in this offense somehow. That's kind of a brain breaker. That's another scrambler, if you will, that suddenly a rookie on this team is the one that's getting the most targets. And really, I feel like Rashee Rice isn't targeted outside of 10 yards down the field. They're trying to get the ball in his hands quickly and let him go and make moves because he's so good after the catch. But, like, man, I'm just going to toss this out there. I don't want to Chicken Little. I know I already said the sky is falling, but let's be honest. The Chiefs have 4 weeks to decide if they have enough at receiver. Last year, I would say, I don't want to have a recency bias, but like I would say that maybe the offense looked better through 4 games last year. Who knows through 8? If somebody wants to crunch those numbers quickly, please feel free. But they acquired Kadarius Toney last year because they didn't think they had enough. They acquired him on October 27th. The trade deadline is on Halloween, actually, this year. So come, 2, 3, 4 o'clock Central Time on Halloween, the Chiefs won't really have much of an option in terms of changing what they have at wide receiver, trying to add to that room. And ultimately, they only have $4 million, and it's actually just a little under $4 million in cap space. So if you've got dreams of, Mike Evans or some other big name, big money wide receiver, I don't think that's in the cards for the Chiefs unless they can get creative in that trade. And so you're looking at another probably first contract guy or low-level veteran salary just to try to add to that room. And so over the next month, it's going to be really important for somebody to either separate themselves from the pack and give the Chiefs a consistent weapon in the passing game other than Travis Kelce, or Brett Veach is going to have to really get creative to try to add something to this room. And I don't want to say that this is a problem that will last the whole year, because we knew there's a bunch of young guys. This is probably more about development. Where are they at the end of the year rather than the beginning? And they already have a logjam at that position. There's so many guys, they don't even know who to play half the time. But when you play a good defense like the Jets and it looks that clunky, it just lets me know, like, I want to just write it off to it's early in the year, but we might be looking at something that could last for a while as far as these receivers.
It's pretty similar to last year, I think. They had some up and downs. Obviously, they had the 44 points against San Francisco. That seems like the explosion. But then the next week they played Tennessee and win 20-17. And that's one of the uglier offensive performances we've seen in the Mahomes era, really. I mean, Tennessee's defense really kicked our ass that night, and we only won because Malik Willis was on the other side. So they're kind of up and down the whole way. They lost to Buffalo, where the pass rush gave them lots of trouble. They lost to Indy, obviously. They scored 17, but they beat Tampa Bay and scored 41. So it's kind of really up and down. I want to say, like, the narrative going last year was like teams that were like blitzing were really struggling. And then there was other teams that were playing like the too high shell, and they were kind of having success against us. But it seems like teams that are having success against the Chiefs this year are doing it in man coverage. I wanted to read some stats here and just get just see if this concerns you at all, because there were some interesting stats I saw, concerning stats that were floating around Twitter. Travis Kelce against man coverage this year only has one catch. Mahomes actually has a 0.0 QB rating throwing at him in man coverage. I'm not sure if that must have been an interception in there. Is the only way I'd get to 0. Rashee Rice versus man coverage. You brought him up. His really main route has just been like sitting in the slot against zone and just like, sitting right over the middle for like 5 to 7 yards kind of thing, and then just catching it and getting upfield. Like, that's kind of been his go-to play. Rashee Rice against man coverage, 5 targets, 0 catches. That one's courtesy of Ron Kopp. A lot of these from Ron Kopp. And then Sky Moore, just 0 yards in this game. MVS, he has 9 targets in 2023 so far. Through week 4 last year, he had 23. And that led to 81 total targets for the year for MVS. He's only on pace for 38 targets this year. I mean, do these stats concern you? Like, first, I guess it's just man coverage, and then just more of the top receivers not getting targets or catches, which we kind of already touched on. But against man coverage, it seems like they're missing a receiver who can, win in man coverage and get them like a 3rd and 4 conversion if they come up and play press man.
I mean, I think that we came into the year assuming that was in many ways like Sky Moore's job. And
you saw that early, like on the first drive, he had like the 3rd and 3, and he runs a little out, and he just doesn't bend the route off correctly, and he kind of drifts upfield with it, and you can see Mahomes puts it where he thinks Sky Moore should be. I think Mahomes liked the pass. Sky Moore wasn't where he thought he'd be, and you saw Mahomes talking to him after the fact, and that's kind of just the Sky Moore struggles, the Mahomes maybe not trusting him fully, but that's a perfect encapsulation of what we're looking at.
Let me ask you this. I mean, is Pacheco the second best weapon on this offense behind Kelce now? I mean, like, is that where we've arrived?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Right now, if you're doing like a power rankings of the weapons, yeah, I think you would have to be. I don't even know who. Rashee Rice, I guess, would be the next answer.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pacheco was sensational on Sunday night. I I mean, I know that if you take away the 48-yard touchdown run, that the rest of the rushing numbers are kind of paltry. But like, it really seemed like when the Chiefs went away from the run game that things got ugly on offense. And I mean, in just 4 weeks' time, I think I'm now of the belief that he is our second best offensive weapon from Kelsey. And we came into the season and I'm like, these running backs are kind of trash. I don't know if Pacheco is good or not. And if nothing else, the thing that I think Pacheco brings to the table that it seems like a lot of these receivers don't is that he truly is an explosive play waiting to happen. And in years past, the Chiefs have had, you know, a Tyreek and a Hardman at the same time. You know, some of these guys that can break the long one. And I guess technically MVS is supposed to be that guy. And, you know, no shade to Noah Gray's catch and run, I guess. But really, like, if I see a long touchdown on this team, I kind of assume it's Pacheco, and I don't know who else would potentially be in the running there.
I mean, I would say Justin Watson maybe. But I mean, part of the problem is with those guys, they can take short passes and turn them into long games, which is maybe something that you're missing right now. And that would be Kadarius Toney's department, I guess I would say. And he's just been banged up, but, you know, you can't really trust him throughout the year because he might always be banged up there. I mean, there's nothing that says he's going to be healthy at any point this year or any other year. So that's another aspect that's missing. That's kind of like the McCole Hardman. He could kind of take these and he's really quick getting upfield with doing whatever. Tyreek, obviously. And they kind of filled that void last year enough with Kadarius Toney, but haven't seen too much of that this year.
I mean, is there something going right at receiver? Like, I don't want to say it's all bad, it's all bad, it's all bad. But that's kind of how it feels through 4 games. Like, I don't know what we've learned through 4 weeks other than maybe Sky Moore isn't the player that we want. You know, you could probably even just say, like, people might think this comes out a little shocky, a little hot takey.
Jeremy Shockey?
Yeah.
You want to trade for Jeremy Shockey?
How old is he? You think he could come out, be the,
He's a man beater?
The new Blake Bell?
He's a man beater. I'll take it.
I think that we can say, like, it's factually correct to say that the Chiefs lost the trade where they could have had George Pickens and instead ended up with Sky Moore and Darian Kennard. Like, I mean, it's now basically up to Sky Moore versus George Pickens. But I mean, through 20 games, through 20 regular season games, the Chiefs have really been kind of crushed by that one, but they still won a Super Bowl.
Was that the actual pick? The actual pick they traded was Pickens?
I don't know if it was the actual pick, but like they moved back 4 spots and it was basically, do you want George Pickens or not? They had the opportunity to take him, and then he and Alec Pierce and I believe an offensive lineman all got selected, and then they took Sky Moore. At any rate, I think that it was always kind of a long shot. A guy that didn't have much receiver experience and only had it at a lower level of college football. Smaller guy, not particularly explosive, got big hands and looks like a great route runner, but it's not showing up really yet. And so he might just not be the level of player that they drafted him thinking that he could be. And that's a scary proposition this early into his career and in a season that, like, we want to go win the Super Bowl. And if they keep trotting Sky out there and he's not doing his job, that really hinders their ability to try to continue to grow as an offense. And so, you know, I don't know what's going right at that position just yet. Toney injury, you know, MVS, like you said, he's only got 9 targets. Justin Ross really not getting much time. I think that maybe we want to see some more of that. But maybe we could sprinkle a little goodness on Rashee Rice despite the drops. I don't know.
I got a point to make. There's 2 guys that I want to harken back to these stats that I brought up, but let's do it after this break.
Sure.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
I know you guys can't wait to hear from Dirk, but the NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Now, I need you guys to get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook now and use code KCSN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code KCSN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, Louisiana, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Dirk, you were saying.
Well, just the stats that I brought up against man coverage, because so I think a lot of the, you're looking at this receiving core, you're like, well, they got Travis Kelce, and then we're hoping Rashee Rice becomes the guy. And yet I gave those stats that yet against man coverage, Kelce has 1 catch and Rashee Rice has 0 catches. So they're winning on zone. Travis Kelce will always be super good against zone. He's really good at finding the holes. His chemistry with Mahomes, that will kind of always stay there. The concern is if Travis Kelce loses a step, can he still win in man coverage? And that's kind of just the fear that's looming over the Chiefs franchise, kind of waiting for it because he's 34 years old at this point. So you're hoping that time never comes. But when it does, what does the team do then? Because they're going to need to, fill that hole. Rashee Rice not having any catches against man coverage, that's concerning too, because they're just really missing that guy. And I don't even know how they did it last year. I mean, I know Travis Kelce would have been a lot of the solution. Juju a little bit, but I mean, he's not even a great man beater. He would be good against zone because he's that veteran presence again and finding holes and good after the catch, that kind of thing, reliable. But even him against man coverage wasn't too great. So I think they kind of I would like the answer of how they beat man coverage last year when faced with similar situations to this. And maybe that's just kind of what gives them problems. A team like the Jets that has 2 really good corners and they can just kind of put them out on islands and focus a lot of their attention on Travis Kelce and, everything else. And that's gives this offense problems.
I want to say that the narrative last year was that Juju was kind of the go-to guy when they were facing man coverage. But I mean, he was in and out of the lineup a little bit, and his effectiveness was kind of up and down throughout the year too. I mean, don't get me wrong, had basically 1,000 yards, and I think was certainly consistent enough that Mahomes trusted him. That's been another word that I think is being tossed out a lot over this first month of the season is trust. And like, who does Mahomes trust? Who doesn't he trust? And I mean, apart from Kelce, like there aren't really guys that have an established rapport with him. Sky wasn't able to develop a whole lot of rapport with Mahomes last year because he didn't really get that many snaps. MVS, despite the 90 some odd targets that you said that he got last year, it really seemed like particularly down the field, they just weren't on the same page. And so I don't know if that led to Mahomes not necessarily trusting him now. We see the volume of targets that Kadarius Toney gets when he's on the field to the point where it's like, basically, if he's out there, they're running plays for him. And I mean, he had a couple nice plays. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was only 2 catches, but like they were fun. They were great. But I don't trust Kadarius Toney at all. I just honestly, man, it just looks a little bleak in that room. And that's been a really quick change for me because when we came into the season, I'm just like, dude, I like every one of these guys. I'd hear national people like Bill Simmons be like, the Chiefs are getting real risky at receiver here. Like they're kind of doing this Packers thing where it's like, we don't really need anybody. We've got Mahomes. And I'm like, do you even know who's on this roster? Like they have so much talent. And here we are 4 weeks in, and I'm worried. I am worried about the wide receiver room.
Well, it's an easy defense because you look at last season, and the team wasn't much different last season. They had McCole Hardman, and he probably only played half the season, and then they had Juju Smith-Schuster. Everything else is the same, and you're throwing in Rashee Rice and Richie James and Justin Ross if you want to include them. Yeah. But everything else is the same, so I don't see I didn't see much downgrade, I guess I'd say. I saw like more potential, like some of these guys could pop up. I thought Sky Moore would pop up. Obviously, he hasn't. MVS, after that Bengals game, I kind of thought, he was just kind of doing the Packers thing where, he was catching, 3 balls for 51 yards, and that's just kind of the MVS game. But after that AFC Championship game where they really exploded, I just kind of thought he would take another step this year, just based off that. And it's kind of like, it was kind of forced. Like, okay, he's the only guy left, so we gotta make it work with him. And he made it work with him in a big way. Like it was such a huge game. I kind of expected that to carry over this year and MVS to take a step up. He has done anything but that so far. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. Can I throw out a few names? These aren't super sexy. Ain't gonna move too much needle, but I think it's guys that can work, especially in the slot. Guys that could work on like a 3rd and 4. My guy, Hunter Renfrow. I know it's from the Raiders. 2 years ago, Hunter Renfrow had to be double teamed on every single 3rd down. I saw the Chiefs triple team him on a play, I swear. And now all of a sudden he's catches like two passes for the whole year. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he's just done. He's small and he got hurt or something and he's done. I don't know. But I saw that guy be really good at some point and he's still young. The other guy is coming off an injury. He's buried on his team. He's not getting any snaps. And it's Sterling Shepard, a guy who I have always liked. He's a little bit older, but he's not going to cost you anything. You're sending like a 7th round pick to just take Sterling Shepard off the Giants roster. I checked last night. He's behind Wan'Dale Robinson and some of their rookies, yada, yada. But he's not playing at all. He's a quick little slot guy that I could see kind of working like that. So just a couple names that would be lower leveled, someone who could come in and maybe get you that 3rd and 4 that you need.
And really even another guy on that team who I think the Chiefs were potentially interested in this offseason, Darius Slayton, as if the Giants continue to be in some version of free fall. That's usually what people end up doing is kind of looking at like what teams are underperforming, who might be selling. I've seen a couple of people mention Marquise Brown as an option, a guy in Arizona. I don't really know what his contract is like. Could stretch the field, but I think might bring some of the same issues that they already have. I don't know, man. It's just really weird to go through the first month of the season when the Chiefs are usually like pretty perfect, pretty close to perfect. They did have the Colts game in September last year, but the Chiefs have scored 20, 17, and 23 in 3 of the 4 games here, and then had the big, blow up against Chicago. I look at it and it's like the Chiefs score 17 against Jacksonville, who gave up 21 to Indy and 37 to Houston. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know if the Jags defense is good or not, but they played well that day. I go and look at the Jets. Obviously, we think that their defense is good. And they did. I think that people have tried to put that Jets one in perspective because they played so well against Buffalo that first week. Is that right?
Yeah.
They beat the Bills in overtime. But I don't know, man. I'm not sure what the Chiefs can really hang their hat on through the first month of the season offensively. But I wanna like steer it toward the running game. They might be figuring out that they have this big, kind of like bully group of offensive linemen. They're big, strong guys. They've got plenty of athleticism, and a guy like Pacheco with the explosive ability there. It might be the thing. Like Andy might really have to lean on it, or else it's gonna be. You got to take whatever you can get from that defense. And if it's chipping away 3 or 4 or 5 yards at a time, whether it's a handoff or a throw, like that's just might be where you're at. I don't know how often they're going to be able to threaten downfield, particularly if these guys aren't getting open.
Well, yeah, so I mean, Pacheco was clearly the best player on the field for the Chiefs. He had 158 total yards. It was actually his most career rushing yards and his most career receiving yards in the same game. It was also the Chiefs' most rushing yards since that 2020 game against Buffalo, when Clyde Edwards really went nuts. Kind of his when he announced his presence to the NFL, which didn't last very long.
Yeah,
and it was also the 5th most rushing yards of the Andy Reid era. So they really did lean on the running game in this one. I do think it's kind of positive if you look at it. Like, it's wild that Zach Wilson basically outplayed Mahomes, and yet the Chiefs still won. Like, the Jets are supposed to be a team with everything but the quarterback, and the quarterback played the best game of his career, and Mahomes had the bottom 5 game of his career, and they're on the road and they turn the ball over, and yet they still won. And that kind of speaks to like the talent on the Chiefs team. So I think there is some promising signs that come out of that, that they're able to come away with the win in this game, despite Mahomes playing the way he did. But a few more stats. These ones are Mahomes stats. I wanted to bounce these off you. Mahomes has more turnover-worthy plays. This is everybody's favorite PFF stat than every quarterback except Mac Jones and Desmond Ridder. Mahomes is also 6 of 18 on 20-yard throws. He has the 2nd worst passer rating in the league on deep throws right now. So just some weird stat. And there's also a wild stat. I got to give this one off. This one's just weird. It was the first game. Zach Wilson had more completions, passing yards, touchdowns, and fewer interceptions than Mahomes. The first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, either pro or college, that the other quarterback can say those 4 things. And it's Zach Wilson.
I mean, honestly, I think if you've been watching, and you don't have to be some kind of an expert, welcome to Amateur Hour. If you've been watching, some of these numbers on Mahomes this year shouldn't be surprising to you. I hate the deep ball number. Did you say he was 6 of 19?
6 of 18.
6 of 18. So, 33% on 20-yard throws. I mean, I don't think that they have a ball winner down the field. I think that it's basically, did Andy Reid draw it up right? Did the other team blow a coverage? Like, you don't have a guy that either through speed, athleticism, route running, or his ability in the air that's just going to go get it. And Tyreek used to have all those things. And they didn't necessarily have it last year either, but they found ways to get it done. And so far, the Chiefs have found ways to get it done this year too. I mean, they're 3-1 in that game against the Lions, the opener aside. They're where they should be. It's just, I don't know, man. And I mean, when you start to look at the offensive line, I think that they've been much better at run blocking than pass blocking. I know that they had the stat, I want to say either going into last week or after last week, that Mahomes was one of only 2, or the Chiefs were one of only 2 offensive lines that hadn't been credited with giving up a sack on the year or something. And that fact aside, like, I mean, I really seemed like against this Jets front, which is awesome. Let's be clear. I believe that last week on the lab, they were talking about how the second 4 players on the Jets were better than any of the starters on the Bears defensive line from the previous week. The Jets have a lot of talent and depth along their defensive line, but man, it felt like Mahomes was under pressure, both from quick wins and from good coverage. Like, it was just kind of everything was coming at him. And it to me, it felt like he was under duress. And there was a stretch in the game, especially after that safety, where it went from 17-0 to really started to feel like the tide turned. I mean, that seems like it's the marker in the game that people are pointing to. It felt like they did not try to hand the ball off for like 2 quarters, like 4 or 5 straight drives. It was just, all right, Pat, we're going to let you throw. You're Pat Mahomes. And they were not really getting anything done. I mean, they kicked 2 more field goals the rest of the night after being up 17-0. And so I don't know if it's just that right now, until they can establish some other players, they've got to be as balanced as possible. but yeah, man, they're really going to have to lean into the run game. I do think it's important for us to talk about the defense, though, because you said Zach Wilson had the game of his life. I mean, we went into this game against the Jets, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, look, it might be kind of close, and it might be ugly because this Jets defense is good, but like Zach Wilson is bad. He's bad. I don't have a better adjective. He's bad. He's been bad. And I walked in and said, like, top of the list, this is what I want to see. Number one on the to-do list, give me 2 turnovers tonight. Like, please go out and force 2 turnovers. Zach Wilson should just hand you the ball twice. Unfortunately, he only did it once.
Yeah, he handed us the ball. I'm not sure if we forced the turnover, but he did hand us the ball.
He just gave it away the one time.
Another comparison to the Super Bowl where the opposing quarterback just drops the ball. I don't know. Thanks, guys. It's very helpful when you're playing Patrick Mahomes to just not handle a snap and hand it to us, especially when he scored a touchdown on it. Those help.
Look, I'm not the greatest source to be able to say something like this as convicted as I'm going to.
Nice.
I think Spags had a bad night. I think he had a bad night, and here's my reasoning. I just don't think they had anything in the chamber defensively. I really don't think that. I mean, maybe there was some pressure happening here and there, and we know that, like, he's got to lean on the blitz. I think there's a little bit of a question about Chris Jones and the groin. I think that there were some stretches where
just watch his 40-yard dash, dude. There's no questions. It is undefeated. It is an undefeated groin.
The health of his inner hamstrings. I believe you're talking about the crotch, not the groin.
My bad.
If we want to get scientific.
My bad.
I don't know, man. I mean, the Chiefs defense, like, maybe it was just a huge surprise. I mean, you saw all the guys coming out after the game and tweeting like, this dude was Nick, stop it. Nick's over here. Producer Nick. Chris Jones played 40 snaps in the game. Don't believe me? Just Google Chris Jones 40. Dynamite. I'm going to point out a play, and I know that this happens. Like, this is a Spags thing. They do an overload blitz, and it's built in a way where George Karlaftis has to drop into coverage. But we've got George Karlaftis in coverage in the 4th quarter of a football game, and the Jets outmaneuver you. Karlaftis gets beat on this play. And don't get me wrong, when you blitz, like, you live by the blitz and you die by the blitz. I get it. But it felt like, to me, the blitz wasn't really working most of the night. And that means I don't think it was poor execution. I think it was the Jets knew the blitz was coming and outmaneuvered it, which, to me, this is just simple math. And again, could be wrong. Maybe not the right guy to make this argument. But, like, did Spags, like, get got by Zach Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett? Like, is that what happened? We were declaring the Chiefs the best defense in the NFL after 3 games, and they allowed the Jets to look like that.
To score.
It was a very disappointing performance.
18 points. You're freaking out over the Jets scoring 18 points.
Yeah, because they're that
in the quarterback's best game of his career. No, I mean, it felt like they had a bad performance, but it was only 18 points. They only allowed 2 touchdown drives, one of which was only 29 yards long after a bad horse color call. So that was kind of a nothing touchdown drive. And then kind of Zach Wilson had the best drive of his life, that first drive out of the 3rd quarter. But I kind of come back to the Andy Reid shutdown mode, and I think it applies to the defense too, because Spags wants to run these exotic blitz schemes, but he doesn't want it all out there in tape. We know for a fact that the Chiefs save things for important games. Chris Jones came out and said, versus the Bengals in the regular season last year, they never moved him around the defensive line on purpose because they knew they were going to play the Bengals again, and they knew that they wanted to save that and then busted out that game so they weren't ready for it. So we know for a fact that the Chiefs always have their eyes looking forward on the future to more important games than a Jets game where they get up 17-0. So I think when you have a guy like that who relies like on these blitzes and stuff, he's going to put a lot of that in the bag. And I think that's when the Jets started to feel comfortable. And then later in the game, you saw the Chiefs kind of go back to it. And I don't get mad at these plays where like Karlaftis falls into a zone coverage, because if you're going to bring exotic blitzes and confuse them, you're going to have to do things like drop George Karlaftis into a zone. So I just don't. It's not like he's matched up man to man with a guy. He's just playing a zone like a linebacker. Like, it's not that big a deal. Not big a difference from like Leo Chenal. So I don't get that mad. It's bad optics when he catches it, but this isn't like Justin Houston covering Antonio Brown 50 yards downfield. Like, that never makes any sense. It's just George Karlaftis just sitting there occupying a zone, and you're hoping that these blitz schemes confuse them, which they do numerous times. And nobody points out when a defensive lineman's in coverage when we have a free blitzer and, Justin Reed's just sacking the quarterback easily. Nobody's putting, George Karlaftis, what is he doing in coverage here? Because the quarterback's done and you confuse them. Like, you're going to win some of those, you're going to lose some. I know you scoffed at that line, but I mean, those are the chances you take. And I think more often than not, Spags is winning those battles. I do, but in general, I think the pass rush against a bad offensive line just wasn't as productive as I would have hoped. Chris Jones, he had a sack on the night, but overall was pretty quiet. It was kind of like the Chris Jones, gets his sack, but don't really hear from him the rest of the night. A lot of that's probably because the Jets are getting the ball out pretty fast. But overall, you would have liked to see the defensive line, have a better night. And I think they kind of just took their foot off the gas. I mean, I look at a lot of this as 17-0 and Andy Reid shutdown mode, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it. They have a lot of these ugly wins in them. The Titans last year, the Texans last year. This is what they do. It does not bother them to beat bad teams close. I do want to highlight one play on defense, because this could have been a much different game. I never really thought. Did you ever think the Chiefs were going to lose?
No, I mean, no.
Nah.
No.
It could have gotten to that point. Breece Hall breaks that run, and he's out in the open. He actually has a blocker in front of him who he trips up. And then Brian Cook kind of doing the running one way and has to switch over and kind of make an ankle tackle. And he does that on Breece Hall, who is a great open field runner. And he is the last line of defense. If he gets by him, it's an 80-yard touchdown run. And that was when the game was tied. So I think that was kind of like the biggest play of the game. And shout out to Brian Cook for making that, because this could have been a lot different if the Jets get up 27-20. And now you have a Chiefs offense that is pressing, and now they have to go down and score a touchdown. That changes it. That would have been the first time of the game where I'm like, we could actually lose this game. Because the whole time I was just kind of like, props to the Jets for showing up and making this a game and yada, yada. I never really thought we were going to lose.
You mentioned Brian Cook. I think he and Mike Edwards.
Mike Edwards, our third safety, no matter what year it is, the entire Andy Reid era, our third safety is just an awesome football player.
The both of them have been pretty great so far this season. Mike Edwards getting more and more snaps and looking good in the position. Spags is definitely using him in the right ways. You mentioned Brian Cook, like maybe the play of the game. I was actually going to ask, like, what is the play of this game? Is it the Pacheco 48-yard touchdown run? Is it the Noah Gray 34-yard touchdown catch? Is it Mahomes getting 25 on 3rd and 22, or the 9-yard game ceiling or run, or is it the Brian Cook touchdown saving tackle when the game was tied? I mean, those are like the 5 big memorable plays that go the Chiefs' way. Is there one that jumps out to you as being the most important, whether it's, time and whatever, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think you got to go Mahomes 3rd and 22 scramble, because I mean, that's the most difficult play. The Brian Cook play is the most like under the radar, could have swung things that people don't necessarily look at first off. But no, you gotta go Mahomes 3rd, and then late in the game, going down before the end zone, costing Uncle Dirk some dollars on the offshore bank accounts. I'm gonna have some guys knocking on my door this week, and I'm gonna have to come with some money because Patrick Mahomes does the smart play and slides before the end zone. Kills that Chiefs -7.5.
Well, maybe the smart play for you, Dirk, is to just move on back. If it's that bad, if you owe that much, you can always come home.
We need lots of clicks this week, guys, so I can get this royalty check and pay the guys off, because they're going to cane me.
two quick things before we get out of here. The Trent McDuffie play where Alan Lazard kind of broke him off like 4 separate times, and it was like, hey, McDuffie's got recovery speed. Oh, wait, he overran the route. Oh, no, now they're going to throw pass interference. Like, I mean, it was just a really bad look for our guy Trent. It's one route. It's fine.
Kind of reminiscent of the Super Bowl catch against him. I keep comparing this game to the Super Bowl. It's kind of weird.
That was a tough watch after everyone was like, just wait. Everyone everywhere is going to know McDuffie's name. And it's like, not the right reason this week. Here's the other thing. I'm just going to let's see how you think. What do you think? Something's missing without Nick Bolton. This is not a complaint about any one player. I certainly don't have any major issues with the way that Drew Tranquill has filled in for him, probably playing almost every snap 2 games in a row. There is an edge to Nick Bolton, and just a certain style of play, and maybe there's something about lining guys up. Maybe there's something about the way that these guys complement each other. But there was a stretch in that game against the Jets where it seemed like they just had the Chiefs defense like running in circles. They did not know what was going on. They could not seem to make plays. And because it was Zach Wilson, I was like, what the hell is going on out here? And look, maybe you convinced me it wasn't necessarily a bad night for Spags, but there are some tough moments in there for Karlaftis not being able to finish a sack. Zach Wilson kind of, doing his own scrambling of the night, getting a little shimmy and shake out of some of these sacks. But I miss Nick Bolton. I think the defense misses Nick Bolton a little bit. I mean, the Bears game notwithstanding, but I think that he matters, and I just want to maybe slow people down because there's always been this, how do we feel about Nick Bolton conversation? How valuable is he sort of thing? And because Tranquill played well over the last 2 games, maybe they're like, oh, now Nick Bolton's one fewer guy that we've got to give a contract to. We'd rather have Tranquill. And I think that they need both of those guys, but I think something's been missing without all 32 roaming the middle of the field.
Well, I mean, I think the easy solution is I think Tranquill's played pretty well in his absence. I think the easy solution is that they are their best 2 linebackers, and you want to get Bolton and Tranquill on the field together. Yeah. They've done a little bit of that, but it's still mostly been Bolton and Gay. But Tranquill's new, and they're trying to find his exact role in this defense, but I just think he's shown enough. He's an elite backup middle linebacker. I'll say that at least. Yeah. But if you can find a way to get both him and Bolton on the field, I think that's when you're cooking with fire, cooking with grease.
I think it could be either. It just depends on
cooking with gas.
I'm fine with any of those. I just like to cook.
Cooking with charcoal.
I think the writing is on the wall maybe for Willie Gay. I think that he is their 4th best linebacker probably, and he would be a really fun 4th linebacker for the team, but I don't think he's going to get a second contract. That's kind of the way that it seems like it's going potentially. Do you have a smut report for us before we check out today?
Oh, a quick little smut report. We'd had some digging this week from everybody's favorite sideline reporter, Backdoor Kiki. I just got to find a potential connection between Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's past. Maybe how they met. Did you know Colin Saunders' brother is a backup dancer on the Taylor Swift tour? He dances with Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift with her. But if you're meeting someone who you don't know, don't you always look for a mutual connection in between? And it'd be like, oh man, you used to play with Travis Kelce, and like he goes up to her like, man, he's a great guy. I've partied with him, me and Colin. It seems like everybody was close with Colin Saunders. Yeah. Everybody always talked glowingly about that dude. But I that was kind of interesting. I haven't heard that was a connection between the two, But I'm thinking maybe he played a little matchmaker. I think the Saunders were kind of in the middle here.
It doesn't really surprise me that one of the most athletic big men we've seen in the NFL, that his brother is a dancer for Taylor Swift, and he's out there doing all the choreography and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that tracks for me for sure. As long as it's running in the family. I
want to go to that Saunders Thanksgiving meal and see all the athletes in that family. A bunch of what do they used to call Poe, like a dancing
bear.
Bear.
That's just draft terminology. I tend to break my notes each week down kind of like by position. Like, what do I have for each position group? It's just like one method of organization. And when I got to the tight ends, it was just like his girlfriend had a bunch of cool people in her suite. Like I did, Travis had 6 for 60. Noah
That's
Gray.
Your tight end notes?
Noah Gray kind of upstaged Travis a little bit with the long touchdown. And I'm calling Taylor Swift his girlfriend. But a lot of celebs in the suite. A lot of celebs in the suite.
It was
looking lively up there.
Oh, well, she's trying not to look too lively. But are you tired of it yet?
I mean, honestly, like, I think that. No, I don't really care that much. I don't think that I pay enough attention to like see the total inundation of Taylor Swift.
It's mostly just like talking to people who are like casual fans and like, oh, Taylor Swift, huh? And it's getting maybe a little old. How about this? If it was December and this was going on, what would be your thoughts? Because I don't know if I'd be digging this. I'm cool with this right now, but I don't know if I'd be digging this if it was like in December and this was just now going on.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will admit laughing at a few of the memes about like the way that Taylor might be saying things to Britney or whatever, like, and I'm sitting here thinking like, are we going to get the inverse Giselle after the game? Well, Travis can't throw it and catch it. Like, like something, I don't know. But I mean, I think that right now, like, it's fine. It's kind of kitschy. It's early in the season. But, eventually Taylor's going to be on tour. And so, like, I don't think she's going to be going out of her way to come to football games when she's out, making money on tour. I don't want it to become a distraction. You mentioned December, and I'm like, if we're still cutting to Taylor Swift, like every single time something happens, I'm probably going to be a little miffed by it at that point. I do wonder a little bit about like what this could do if it's an every week after week after week with the Taylor Swift stuff. Because I mean, look, man, like, she's been to 2 games, and I have seen that like the NFL account is like really pushing Taylor Swift type of stuff. I heard that the NFL made friendship bracelets. Was this a real story that they made friendship bracelets and passed them out to Chiefs fans?
I couldn't tell. I think no, but I don't know.
Okay. I was like, I thought that it was literally like, if you're wearing Chiefs gear going to this Jets game, that they will give you a friendship bracelet. And I'm like, maybe, I hope, but it sounds like it's fake. So that's fine. Okay. So then maybe the Swift hysteria is not as bad as maybe I thought.
Nice. Yeah, they had a really fun cut to them. I think it was after Mahomes' interception, maybe, and it was like a 1 second cut, and I was like, and then it cut away real quick, and I was like, what happened there? I also, a couple of plays, everyone's talking about the defender flying by Mahomes. I thought that was Reed. So fucking weird. He had this funny quote. Damn, I don't have it here, but he was like, if I would have hit him going that fast, like I'd be in Botswana right now or something.
I know he played college football in Manhattan for the old Wildcats, so he knows what's
He's
good.
A K-State guy?
Yeah, DJ Reed. Yeah, K-State.
And then also after Mahomes' first interception, they had Andy Reid like walking up to Mahomes, just like, and it was like the Abe Simpson, GIF where he's comes in and then puts his hat down and then
Yeah.
walks right back out. But it was just like you good? Like, yeah, I'm good. Like, okay. See you later.
I did, man. I when Rasheed had the drop early in the game, you just see Andy, and he's like, "Geez, I mean, oh shucks."
Every game, man.
Yeah, we got to get past that, especially if he's going to continue to lead the team in targets. You don't want them to have to like take a quarter off. Well, you know, Rasheed needs to think about it a little bit. Usually they'll go right back to the guy if anybody makes a mistake, but we'll see. Chiefs and Vikings on Sunday. I'm hoping it's just what the doctor ordered for the offense, particularly because Brian Flores.
Sorry, do nothing but play man and blitz.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs have struggled against man. Traditionally, they're very good against the blitz, so that will be interesting to see how that plays out. I would bank on Mahomes. I don't know if I'd say embarrassed, but played badly on a national stage. I would expect a huge rebound from him against a shaky defense.
I hope so. I think that Flores blitzed upwards of 80-something% over the last 2 weeks. I mean, the Vikings have some dudes on defense, but hopefully this will be sort of a get-right game. After the Vikings, it's 3 straight divisional opponents, 2 of which will be against the Broncos. And this 4-week stretch, as we mentioned earlier in the show, it's really time for them to figure out what's going on at wide receiver if Brett Veach is going to have to make a move before that trade deadline. But good talking to you, Dirk. This has been Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He is his Dirkness, and Justin Herbert is Phillip Rivers.